Hello everyone and welcome back for another Baron's Den Top 10, and this week we are doing Top 10 Strength Skills. So we've already looked at the General tree and the Agility tree. We're now breaking into the Strength tree, and the Strength tree has some of the best skills in the game and is generally, I think, thought of as pretty much the second best tree out of the 5. Maybe for some people even the best, but I still prefer the General. I think there's a wider variety of good skills in the General. However, there's some absolutely belting skills in the Strength tree, which we will go into. Again, like I've explained in the other videos, there's only 12 skills to choose from anyway. So a top 10 video is basically just listing them. There'll be 2 that don't make the top 10, which will be the 2 that I think are the least effective. But as always, nearly all of these skills you can still make some use out of. Just some are a lot more useful than others. Right, let's crack on with our honourable mentions. Okay, so the first honourable mention goes to Strong Arm. So what is Strong Arm? +1 passing ability test for a throw teammate action. Player that does not have the throw teammate trait cannot have this skill. And that is the main reason why I can't put it in the top 10, because most players can't even use it. It annoys me really that they changed it from the 2016 edition, because again, passing has already been hurt a lot, but another way to make your players better passers in the 2016 version was to give them Strong Arm, because that was +1 on passing tests for throw teammate and for passing the ball. So you could even give it to throwers, or I don't know, say you wanted a beastman who could actually throw the ball a bit, you could give one of them Strong Arm and build them into almost a passer. But again, they took that secondary route to passing away. So as it is, it's not great. Don't get me wrong. You might want to give an ogre or a troll Strong Arm to help with your throw teammate action. But as throw teammate actions are inherently risky, you don't see them that often. We might start seeing them more when goblins and halflings arrive. But of course, for halflings, the tree man already comes with Strong Arm, so he can make use out of it. And it's okay for throw teammate, but I've never thought, oh, I really wish I'd got Strong Arm when I'm throwing a halfling or a goblin, because most of the time you're in the lap of the gods anyway about whether it goes right. So that's why I can't put it in the top 10. The other skill that I'd put in the just outside of the top 10 is Pile Driver. So when an opponent is knocked down by this player following a block, this player can attempt a free foul action against the opponent if he's in an adjacent square. This action ends the activation and places the player prone. So, trying to unpick this one. At first, when I first read Pile Driver, I thought, oh great, a free foul action. That means I can foul, and then I can foul again with this player. No, that's not what the free means. You don't get an extra foul, and you can still only foul once per turn. It just means this player can combine a block with a foul. And then I thought, well, does the free action mean that you can't be sent off from it? No, you can still be sent off for it. So essentially all this is doing is replacing the foul, but your opponent gets to lie on the floor. And it gets to be the same person who did a block. So for me, this has such minor usage. You might have, I don't know, a player who you give who's got strength access, or you can give a cheaper skill up, who's already got Dirty Player and Sneaky Git. Maybe you give them Pile Driver because you'll want to make use of them as a blocker as well, and still foul with them. But that is so specific. I don't see you ever really wanting this. Treeman you might random it and make use out of it on a big guy for something if needs be. And I think there is a weird route in getting your treemen stop taking root by triggering Pile Driver. But again, for that to work, if your tree man's taken root, you need somebody to be foolish enough to be standing next to your tree. So again, are the opportunities for that very going to come up frequently? No, is the answer to that, I'm afraid. So that's why I can't put Pile Driver into the top 10. Right, on with number 10. Okay, so for number 10, I've gone with Armbar. What is Armbar? If an opponent marked by at least one player with this skill fails to dodge, leap or jump over test, +1 is applied to an armor roll value or injury test. So essentially, this is Mighty Blow for people who failed dodges out of a tackle zone of the player who's got this. So when it comes up, it's going to be great. You're going to love that, particularly if you're playing against players who are going to be trying to dodge around you. You know, you think of the likes of your Wood Elves, your Elven Union, your Skaven. They're likely to be low armour as well. So, you know, combining this skill with things like tackle and diving tackle can be really great. The problem comes, like with some of the other skills in other trees, is that it's a strength skill, so you're not likely to be able to easily combine this with diving tackle and tackle cheaply. One of those is there's not many players who've got general strength and agility. When vampires come, that's going to be an option there, but there's not many players who can do that. And then you start to think, well, is one of those skills worth a 40,000 increase? Possibly not. You're occasionally going to random it, and it will occasionally come in, but it's just not. It's not going to have the use that a lot of these other skills are going to have, and it's certainly not a primary skill that you choose for a lot of your players with strength access. But I have seen it be useful, and it can even deter opposition. The other problem you've got is in the current Blood Bowl 3 meta on the ladder for Season 5, and it's been the case probably up till now, is it's so bash heavy with lots of Orcs, Dwarves and Chaos Chosen that you might find that people don't try and dodge out of your tackle zones that often. So again, sometimes you've got to take in the current meta into account when you're planning these level ups. But that's it for me, is number 10. Okay, in number 9 we have Multiple Block. So Multiple Block, on a block but not a blitz, this player can attempt a block action on 2 players he is marking by reducing his strength by 2 for this activation. The block actions are simultaneous and resolved independently of the result of each one. So essentially it means your dude can block 2 people, one after the other, as long as they're adjacent. And of course they can't follow up, so they move away from the other person they're going to block. It's not too bad. I mean, I know I've only got it at number 9, but it's okay. But it's only going to work on high strength players. And if you take your average high strength player, so like an ogre strength 5, if you minus 2 off his strength, he's then strength 3 blocking 2 people. So if they've got strength 3 in themselves, you brought yourself down to a 1 die block. So that's when you need a bit of guard, or you need offensive assists. So managing multiple block can be, you can give it to a big guy thinking, yeah, I'm going to make great use of this, and then you might find that actually it's not as useful as you think. Great on tree men because they're going to be strength 4 blocking, which is a big difference between strength 3 blocking and strength 4 blocking. Same goes for any big guy who's had a strength increase. The Death Roller, not many skills come into play for the Death Roller, but the multiple block would be a good one for the Death Roller as well, for the same reasons, for it being such high strength. Technically, a Death Roller could multiple block big guys with 1 die blocks, which I wouldn't advise doing, but just shows the sheer strength of the Death Roller. So for me, and again, you can't use it on a blitz, so it's not as useful as some of those other skills. But if you were to get it on randomly on a big guy, you might think it's worth keeping and just checking it out to see what you can do with it. Okay, number 8 is Break Tackle. So where's Break Tackle? There it is. So, once per activation after a dodge test, and if his strength is 4 or less, the result can be changed by +1. If it is 5 or more, it is changed by +2. So essentially, if you're dodging for 1 dodge, if you're dodging away from somebody, you will get a +1 if you're strength 4 or more, or a +2 if you're strength 5 or more. Now, Break Tackle used to be great, but that was when you just invert the strength and the agility round. So they'd be dodging on whatever their strength skill was. So something like a Saurus dodging away on what would be effectively a 2+ was really good. But now it's just +1 to their agility, and because their agility is so poor, they're actually dodging on that's the equivalent of a 4+. So you're never going to do that, which is a bit of a shame. It still has usage. So you're thinking of your likes of your rat ogres, your ogres, your minotaurs. All of those, they're going to be dodging on the equivalent of a 2+. Maybe not the troll, actually. And so to get those players out, it can be really useful to give them break tackle, so you're literally rolling a 2+. The downside being, of course, they usually have loner skill, so you might find that you don't want to take that risk of rolling the 1. Then there's mummies, again. Old rules, break tackle would be great for them, get them out of a tackle zone. Again, though, because it's not swapping strength and agility around, it's just going to be +2. It's not going to give you that roll that you need. So, again, we're starting to now get to skills that are a little bit more useful and can be used on more players. But for me, still not one of the top strength skills. Number 7, Thick Skull. Now, I can't believe I've put Thick Skull ahead of the likes of break tackle and multiple block, but where is it? Here it is. I'll explain why. So, on an injury test against this player, on a 8 or 7, if stunned, other results are unchanged. So basically, if you roll an 8 or 7, if you're a stunty, normally you'd be KO'd. If you've got Thick Skull, you just stay stunned. Now, to a lot of people, that's very unglamorous. That's very, specific, and they'll think, well, I'm never going to choose that skill, because that's never going to come up very often. The roll of 8 comes up more often than you think. I'm not an expert on dice rolls, but surely the combination of dice means that your 7s and 8s are going to come up more often. So the fact that they will stay on the pitch can be quite big. Now, I don't think I've ever chosen Thick Skull for anyone, but I've often got it on a random, or you have certain players that start with it, and it can be really useful. Same with Black Orcs with their Goblin Bruisers. Having Thick Skull can be really useful, and it is another way to battle that war of attrition by not having players disappearing into the KO box as much. So that's why I've put it there. Really could be useful for pretty much anyone. Not that you'd be giving it out freely, but if you randomed it, particularly if you've already got some core skills on a big guy or a strength guy, Thick Skull isn't the end of the world. So that's why I've ranked it number 7. Number 6, Brawler. So Brawler. On a block declaration but not a blitz, this player can re-roll 1 both down result. So Brawlers basically come in as a bit of an answer to block for high strength players. They know, but if they give access to strength players, if they give easy access to block, with strength players, then those players are going to become overpowered pretty quickly. That's part of the mitigation now. So big guys with block, you either have to forgo that, or you have to save up a lot of SPP and give away a lot in team value to have that much more consistent heavy hitter. What I like about when Brawler came along is it's kind of a halfway house. It's not block, it's not even close to being block, but it does take away some of that threat of causing a turnover, because it just means that when you're rolling dice, if it's a both down, you've got a chance to re-roll that. That's nowhere near as good as block, but at least it's something. And because it's primary access, you might find yourself on certain players that perhaps going to be a bit more passive. So I'm thinking things like trolls, maybe even rot spawns, where part of what they're doing is just standing there, guarding, using tentacles, holding players in position, gumming up the line. You might find that actually it's worth giving those players Brawler, because they're not going to block that often, and when they do, you can then re-roll one of the dice if you get the both down. So I think Brawler was a nice answer. And if you take the Black Orc team, there'll be a lot of Black Orc players who will appreciate Brawler, and how often actually it does come in to save you. It's not block, and it was never supposed to be block, but it's just that little bit of help for the strength players who can't get access to block, to make them a teeny tiny bit more consistent. And for me, that's why I've ranked Brawler at number 6. Okay, number 5 is Grab. So when this player performs a block action, the skill prevents the use of sidestep. Whey! Moreover, if during a block, but not a blitz, the target player is pushed back, any square adjacent to the target can be chosen. player with this skill cannot have Frenzy. So Grab is really useful on a number of reasons. One, it cancels out Sidestep. So that means that your Snotlings, your Wraiths, all those annoying players who dance around your ball carrier or jump into spots that you don't want them in, Grab is going to override that. But also, it's really good for passing players on, for surfing purposes, lots of different ways. It gives you control over the pitch and control over your opposition players. So I'm a big fan of Grab. The difficulty for Grab is that it's just not as attractive as some of the other skills, so it won't often get picked early on. So when people do short runs in leagues, tournaments, or even the ladder, you won't see that much Grab, which is a shame really, because it's a really good skill. But it's usually a top choice for a blocker after your first round. So after you block Guard's Mighty Blows, Grab is then up against things like Grab, Stand Firm, for that secondary pick. So I love Grab, big fan of it, and that's why I ranked it at number 5. Number 4 is Juggernaut. When this player performs a block during a blitz, he can choose to consider a both down result as a pushback. Moreover, under these same conditions, the target of the block cannot use Fend, Stand Firm, and Wrestle skills. Again, I'm going to say one of these statements now that isn't quite true. I see Juggernaut as like the other half of Brawler. So if you gave a player Juggernaut and Brawler, you've almost got block. That's not the case because neither of these do anything on the defensive side, which block does. But what they do allow you to do is do extra things that block doesn't. So it is saving you from that both down result for a start. Your player's not going to tank it as long as they're blitzed. But especially useful for those stand firm players or wrestle and fend players when you just want to get those kind of players down on the ground and you want to follow up, you want to encroach. Also useful on players who've got frenzy. The only downside of Juggernaut is it's only when blitzing. So that's often why I have seen Brawler and Juggernaut partnered up. So you've got some protection when you're brawling and one when you're using Juggernaut as well. The downside of which, if you do those as your first 2 skills, that's going to cost you 14 SPP. For 12 SPP, you could have gone straight for block, which is probably still better than both of those. However, the reason I've ranked Juggernaut higher is because you often want at least one player who can smash through players who've got block, who've got wrestle, who've got fend, who've got stand firm. Juggernaut will override all of that because it will allow you to push them back. It doesn't send them to the ground, but it does allow you to push them back, which can open up channels. It can help with surfing. It's just really useful in that respect. Particularly useful on players with frenzy, horns, high strength, because it just means you can really cruise missile your way through your opposition's defence. So I do like Juggernaut. The one thing I would say, you wouldn't probably need a lot of Juggernaut on your team, once or twice, but can be really useful on some of those players. Okay, into the top 3 now. So in third position, I've gone for Stand Firm, which might surprise people, because it's a pretty, at first glance, average looking skill. This player cannot be pushed back. Boom, done. But as somebody who's played a lot of necromantic horror in my life, so I've used my flesh golems that come with Stand Firm, and I've done a fair bit of tree men in wood elves and halflings as well. It's so useful, and you forget how good it is to be able to stop your opponent pushing up on you, either from a pushback or from knocking you to the ground. It can protect the corners of your cages. It can protect your line. People can often forget as well, so they'll go into something thinking, great, if I get this guy out the way, whether it's a push or not, it'll allow me a channel to run through, and then your guy stands firm and he ruins all their plans. So it's really, really good. You have got to watch out for the Juggernauts. So often once you've got stand firm or maybe sidestep, you feel more inclined to have your players close to the sideline, even with frenzy players around. Just be aware that if someone with Juggernaut comes along, that's going to override your stand firm. But it really allows you to hold down positions on the pitch and gain a measure of control over where things are. So big fan for me of stand firm, which is why I've ranked it 3rd. All on to 2nd now, and there'll be a lot of people wondering which one will I go for in second place. And I'm actually going to go for Mighty Blow. So, Mighty Blow, very famous skill. Needs little introduction to seasoned players, or even players who've only played a little bit. A lot of you will have heard of Mighty Blow. So, when an opponent is knocked down following a block by this player, you can change the armor value or injury test by the amount between the brackets. This modifier can be applied after the test. This skill is not usable with stab or chainsaw. So a lot of people fear Mighty Blow because it can be applied to both armor and injury. So if they roll well on the first one, you really are bracing yourself for a bad result on the second one. Being able to affect the armor and the injury rolls is massive. And it only gets better if you have any players with Mighty Blow +2. I think currently there are only 2-star players, Morg and Deeproot, who have Mighty Blow +2. But they're absolutely terrifying. What's great about it as well is it's useful against all players. So it's useful against Stunties and Skaven and Elves because they've already got low armour, so it's easier to take them out. But it's also really nice against Orcs and Dwarves with high armour because you're bringing their armour essentially down by 1. So it's really great. I'm a huge fan of Mighty Blow. It was very close whether I gave this number 1 or whether I gave it to number 2. Again, most players could make use of it. The only downside is a lot of your players might not have strength access. So to give them Mighty Blow, you'd be giving away a lot of team value. But certainly anyone who does have strength access, at some point they're going to be getting Mighty Blow. Often as their first or second pick. That's how good it is. And would you want multiple on your team? Yes, you would. If you're a Dwarf team, you're going to be working towards all of your blockers having Mighty Blow at some point. Even if you don't start straight away with it, they are going to be getting it by some point. Would you give it to your Troll Slayer? Yes. Would you give it to your Blitzer? Probably. So there are going to be some teams that have a lot of it on their team, which is very frightening then when you come to play against it. Okay, finally on to number 1. It needs, again, a bit like Mighty Blow, no introduction, and that is Guard. So Guard, this player offers offensive and defensive assists, no matter how many players are marking them. Quite simply, this skill is one of the best skills in the game. You know, I'll always favour block as the best skill in the game. You could make a case for Guard being joint top or second, but it's right up there. It is amazing, and I hate it. Famously hate Guard. In the league that I play, I've had to play a lot of Orcs and Dwarves over the time. And every time their player goes to skill up, you look at them, you think, you're going to pick another Guard, aren't you? And on it goes. But the reason I hate it, and the reason I find it boring, and the reason I find it frustrating, is because it's good. You can't deny that. Allowing your players to be giving assists, regardless to whether they're being marked, is huge. It's absolutely huge. And for Dwarves alone, because they've got so much access to it, they can almost make pseudo their whole team strength 4, which is really, really powerful. And well, in some cases strength 5 if they've got a player on either side. And when you get Orcs cooking with Guard as well, who already have strength 4 players, or Chaos Chosen, who have a mixture of strength 4 and a strength 5 big guy, you can really find yourself almost disengaging from being able to fight them because you're constantly looking at 1 die blocks or even 2 die ups, unless you have the Guard yourself. So for me, if they banned Guard, I think I'd be quite happy because, I wouldn't have to worry about it so much. I find myself having to use more Guard to combat the Guard that I know I'm going to see eventually from opposition players. Now, there is a counter to it, and that's called Defensive, which we've talked about in the agility tree. But as of yet, I've yet to see it used widely as a counter to Guard. So basically, it doesn't work on offense and defensive. So it's still useful to you, Guard, even if your player has a defensive. And again, the players who get defensive are often usually punched, which is why some people give it to big guys and high strength blockers, and will even take the hit on team value as a secondary skill, because it will help switch some Guard off. But on the whole, particularly early on, and people forget that, it's all very well saying, oh, you can put defensive on your big guys and your blockers. By the time you get to be able to do that, you'll have to have saved up so much SPP. You'll have probably wanted to put things like Block and Mighty Blow on first. Do we often play games at such high TV? Probably not. I don't know. So I certainly don't. So in tournament play, when you get anywhere between 6 to 10 skills, you're not going to be seeing much defensive. when you play a short league, are your big players going to get there? And even in the ladder, most people get tired of playing the same team after a certain amount of games and move on to another. Are you going to have had enough games to have picked up defensive on some of your high strength players? Now, don't get me wrong, you can easily stick defensive on agility players, but my point has always been all along, it's easier to deal with those players if they're lower strength. So that's it for me. That's the top 10 strength skills with guard winning out. I think next we've only got passing and mutation to do, so we'll probably do mutation. They're often the two least loved trees of the 5. Certainly passing anyway. Mutation's got some really interesting skills on there, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So that's what we're going to do that one next. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps my end. And yeah, I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.